Flipping property can be an appealing strategy as the profits from one single deal could be more than the average UK salary. In this video, I want to give you the steps that you need to follow to smash your first flip. Hey, if you're watching my videos for the first time, my name is Saj Hussain, and on this channel I share with you my 15 plus years of property investing experience to ultimately help you get further faster in your own property investing business. When we talk about flipping property, essentially what we mean is acquiring a property, adding some value, making it much nicer and selling it on for a profit. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. The end objective is to profit from that property transaction. When people get involved in property and property investing, some people will start with flipping property as their first type of strategy that they follow. Other people are maybe experiencing other types of strategies before they get involved in flipping a property. Although flipping property is a fairly simplistic term, there's actually different levels of renovation. So for instance, it might be a light renovation we're talking about, or light refurbishment. What we mean by that is really you maybe just redecorating, cleaning the property up, fitting new floor coverings, maybe some laminate floors, some carpets, some lino in some places, and you're just freshening up and making it look a lot nicer. A medium refurb, on the other hand, may be something where you're, let's say, stripping out the kitchen and the bathrooms, you're refitting those as well, maybe a little bit of reconfiguration work, maybe taking out some partition walls within the property just to change the layout very slightly. But when we're talking about a heavy refurb, generally we're doing things which are much more extensive, maybe gutting the property out, taking it back to its original brickwork, maybe even putting an extension on the property. So each of those different levels of renovation require a different level of experience and expertise as well in order to get the best possible results. Although what I've been talking about is primarily how to make money from the property by adding value, there's actually another way to make money from property as well when you're flipping, and that's when you buy the property. If you buy at the right price, it means you're actually building some profit on day one. You may have heard the term that you make your money when you buy, and essentially that's what they're referring to. So for example, let's say it's a £200,000 property and you're purchasing at say £170,000, then you've already locked in £30,000 profit before you've even actually done any work. Let's say you put that property back on the market, assuming there's sufficient demand for it, you've just negotiated a great deal, but you list it now at its normal price, i.e. its market value of 200,000, you could theoretically walk away with £30,000 profit. So when we're flipping the property, if you're buying at the right price and you're adding value, essentially getting two bites of the cherry. And when we combine the two, those are the ones that produce the best profits. You might be wondering right now, when you're getting started, which is going to be the right type of refurb for you? Is it going to be a light refurbishment, something medium, or something much more bigger in terms of a heavy refurbishment project? Well, really, this is going to depend on the level of expertise you have access to in terms of doing that first flip. So for example, let's say you already work within the trade, you're a carpenter, electrician, plumber, you'll have some understanding of property and property renovation. You may not necessarily have the expertise of a full project renovation, but you'll probably have contacts to other people within the trades, within the industry as well, that may be able to help you get that project done. Let's say, for example, it's your first project that you're doing and you don't really have access to some of these experts and expertise that we're talking about, and you decide you're going to do a big renovation, you're going to strip the property out and add a lot of value to that property. Well, if it's your first project and you don't have access to some of these people, then your risks are quite high because there's a lot of things that you don't know. I.e., we don't know what we don't know. And when we come to property renovation, this definitely applies. So for example, let's say we're looking at a room and we say, yeah, we can maybe just strip some of that old wallpaper down and we'll give it a lick of paint and it'll look fantastic. But when you start stripping the wallpaper down, you find there's actually many layers of wallpaper that's been there that people have just wallpapered over old versions. You start pulling that down, and then you actually find some of the plaster's quite poor and that starts pulling away. Then the plaster comes off the wall as well, and then you find actually there's some rising damp behind that wall as well, which is why the plaster wasn't sticking. Spotting these things before you get started can be very difficult. So there can be a lot of unforeseens within projects. So the decision around what type of project you should do really is around what kind of expertise that you have around you, behind you, in order to support you for the success of that project. And if you're starting out with your very first project, my suggestion would be start off with a light refurbishment. Just experience the process. You may not make the most amount of money on that particular project, but it will give you the experience that you need to be able to repeat this, go forward, and be able to build that team. When you start looking for these fixer-upper type of projects, you'll be looking to see what's available on the market, what you can purchase. Maybe it's some with an estate agent, maybe something's available at the auction that you might be looking to acquire. Essentially, you're looking for something that may be a little bit tired where you can add value for. That's what most people tend to zone in for. But it's not just looking for a tired property that you can add value to. Sometimes it could be in a property that's already in a fair condition, but maybe there's scope to improve it, extend it, reconfigure it in a location which is highly desirable. So it's not just the fact that actually there's value that you can be added to that property, because yes, there's so much we can do to a property. However, there's one thing that we can't change. and that's its location. And we've heard the phrase location, 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 because that's absolutely key when we come to flipping property, because that will determine what the values could be, what the ceiling price might be on that particular street. Now, yes, it's possible to push past those ceiling prices, but we need to be aware of what they currently are before we commit to a project and when we're starting to do our analysis and due diligence. Our ultimate objective here really is to profit from property. And the way we do that is initially we would look at what is it that they're asking for the property, what's the asking price. That gives us a baseline figure of what we might need to pay to get into that deal. Then we've got to work out what is it we want to do to that property in order to be able to uplift its value, and what is the finished product going to look like. Then we need to assess what's that going to be worth, what's going to be the new value of that finished project. Some people refer to this as the GDV, the gross development value. Often that's referred to as bigger development projects. When we're looking at an individual property, a flat or a house, we're really looking at its end market value. What is it that it could be worth? The next thing we then need to calculate is the works that need to be done on that property in order to make it look like and have that finish that we want. How much is it that we need to do work-wise, and what's going to be the cost of those works? This is a stage where people often make mistakes. They'll underestimate the amount of money required to be able to create the product that they're thinking about, and they may overestimate the end value of that particular property. They may also underestimate how long it's going to actually take to do the works as well, either time frame. There is the running joke when it comes to renovating property, everything's going to cost more and take longer. And this is where really you can benefit from having expertise around you. But let's say you're starting out, you don't really have access to that expertise. How is it you're going to get started? So when you're looking at that property to purchase, let's say from the estate agent, one thing I would encourage you to do is ask the agent, what would they do to this property if they were looking to sell this property back on? Because they understand the market in terms of who the buyers are for that particular type of property. So they know a developer of some kind is going to purchase that property, most probably because they can see the value that can be added to it. But then now you want them to think about, when it's a finished product, who is it going to be targeted at? Who is it that would want that property, and who would pay the most money for that property? So for example, it might appeal to a family if it's currently a 3-bed, but if it's a 4-bed with 2 bathrooms, those really fly off the shelf. And this is really valuable information for you doing market research, understanding who it is that may be your end buyer and what expectations that they have. Because these are things you want to build into your costing and think, yes, I need to be able to find how I can get a 2nd bathroom in this house. Where am I going to create that 4th bedroom? Am I going to convert the loft? How is it I'm going to make that work? And when you're starting out, the one thing we don't want to do is rely on the guidance of just one estate agent. What you want to do is call other agents in the area, explain to them you've got a property that's maybe a 3-bedroom on this particular street, and what you want to do is improve it and renovate it and maybe bring it back to the market to sell. And what is it that they think that the market needs? What sort of price point is realistic and achievable? And what essentially they think that product needs to look like? When you do this with a number of different agents, what it will enable you to do is take those different data points, those different references, opinions, in order to formulate what you think that finished product should look like. Now, what that doesn't mean is we incorporate everything everybody said, but we look at where the commonality is. If, for example, the 4th bedroom keeps coming up again and again, that's what really people want in that area, then we know that's a definite. We need to find a way to be able to do that in order to be able to maximize our profit on this particular deal. Once we've established what we want to do with it, now we've got to work out, is it realistic, is it doable, and what's it actually going to cost? And if you're new and inexperienced in doing this, what we want to do is involve a number of different builders and get their opinions. Now, if you can get some referrals from a builder in terms of somebody that somebody else has worked with, that will definitely make life easier. But if you want to learn about how to find a great builder, we'll link a video up here for you to watch afterwards. With the builders, you want to get their opinion of being able to create this product, what the costs are likely to be, and can they see any challenges in the practicalities of implementing that. Let's say, for example, you're thinking, right, I'm just going to convert this loft and put a 4th bedroom up there. But when they look at it, they think, actually, this is going to be super expensive because there's some challenges, because the way the structure of the roof is, for instance, then it may not be so practical to follow that option. So what the builder will do, help you understand the costs, but also the practicalities of being able to deliver that product. In my mind, the builders are the single most important part within your particular deal, because they're the difference between making a little bit of money and making a huge profit. They can either make a deal or break a deal for you. So it's important that you're building those relationships and you're working with good, competent builders who understand what they're doing, who are not going to rip you off, who are not going to take advantage of you, who are not going to be doing 10 projects at the same time, and then on your project maybe just on a Thursday afternoon, and the rest of the week they're doing something else. The alternative to this is you project manage and get into all the different trades that you need, i.e. the carpenter, the plumber, the electrician, the roofer, all the various different people that you need, and you manage them individually and the individual jobs in order what they need to do to get this project finished. Now, I wouldn't recommend this unless you really understand what needs to be done, unless you're a great project manager as well, because this could be quite a daunting task. So for example, you might find that you need to do some plumbing there, you need to plaster the wall there, and you find that actually what's happened is that the plaster has been, they've plastered and then they've tiled over as well. Then the plumber turns up afterwards and starts fitting the pipes and looks unsightly, when really what could have happened is those pipes could have been hidden in the wall if it was all managed correctly. And often we don't know about these things, in what order things need to be done, and we just assume the common sense is going to be there between the different trades. But the reality is they're not going to manage themselves. You need to manage them. So unless you have that experience, I wouldn't really encourage you to do that. I remember in the early days when I first started, I thought I had all these guys working for me, the electricians, the plumbers, the plasterers, running around doing these projects for me, and I was kind of managing. And the reality was they weren't really working for me. I was working for them. I was running around trying to organize things that were missing, that somebody had asked for that wasn't there, and then trying to sort out disputes between the plumber and the electrician who are not getting on. All these problems, it's just a complete headache and nightmare. And things really changed when I started giving projects to one builder as opposed to trying to manage the individual trades. As your project starts to reach completion and we get ready to get it onto the market, this is the time we need to be thinking about what's going on in the market, when we're going to get it on the market, at what point we're going to photograph it, what does it need to look like, when are the viewings going to start, and what are we going to possibly be able to achieve for that particular property. Now, hopefully we've taken the advice and guidance of some of the people around us, the experts and the expertise around us, and benefiting from that. I remember there used to be a TV program that Sarah Beanie used to host called Property Ladder. I used to be an avid fan, watch every single episode. And I remember sometimes she'd go in and she'd give some advice to a developer, particularly a new developer, and say, hey, look, I think you should maybe do this and don't do that, and this is going to be a complete waste of money, and this is how I suggest you should do this. And she's essentially parting her many years of experience of doing this type of work in order to try and help somebody else. And often, of course, because these programs are more entertainment than anything else, the developers would go off and do their own thing and really ignore what Sarah had to say in that particular situation. She'd then come back once the project's finished and it's all looking fabulous, they'll get it on the market. And I vividly remember her many a time she would look at the project and she could, yeah, you've done a decent job, and the reason you've made money is because the market has saved you. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but essentially what she was saying is that the only reason you made money is not because of what you've done, because the market is rising anyway. When the market's rising and it's a strong, buoyant market, then pretty much, the prices are going up anyway. So even a shoddy job gets hidden and covered because the demand is so strong. Whereas if they're taking her advice on board, they probably would have made even more money. So it's important we are listening to the guidance of people around us, but we don't want to be swayed. Ultimately, we need to make the decision that we think is going to be the right one for our project. Now, sometimes people will either wait when they're getting close to completion and then start getting the agents around to start taking photographs and getting people out, getting the property on the market and start getting people in to maybe even view it. Now, personally, I don't think that's the right way to do it. The way I would approach this is, as the project's getting close to completion, I'd get the estate agents in and I'd get many agents in from the locality, obviously not all at the same time. I'd get them in to come and have a look at the project, and I'd get their feedback and viewpoint of firstly what the state of the market is right now, how healthy it is, the type of demand that is in the marketplace, and what they see on the project that they think maybe we can do differently before we finish. So for example, it might be, they look at the garden and they say, hey, look, it looks kind of tidy, but maybe if you put, sort of roll out some fresh grass out there, that will make it look much nicer. Little things like that. So I take little bits of feedback from the different agents, and over time, what eventually would happen is the agents would come around and say, look, I can't see anything else you should do. You've done everything you should do. But that comes with experience. At the beginning, we're looking for is anything else that we could be doing, because sometimes we might become blind to these things. So for example, when we approach the property, if it's just looking a little bit tired on the outside, even though inside is immaculate, that curb appeal can really have a negative impact if it's not looking great. And they might just say, look, you might just tidy this up or clear this rubbish out, paint this wall, or whatever it might be. So we want to take the guidance from the various different agents, and then we want to put a timeline in place in when we think that project is going to be finished and ready to come to the market. Now, when it is ready, personally, I try and get professional photography done. And the difference between professional photography or, say, in-house photography via the agents is a professional property photographer, his job is really to make that property look its best it possibly can. And even down to using Photoshop to touch up the images. And I'm not talking about, how the property actually looks, but the feeling it creates. So let me give you an example. If you take a picture of a property from the front of a house and it's a dull day, it can look okay. But if you take that same picture of that property and it's a really bright sunny day, the blue sky, it just looks completely different. But the day the photograph's going to be taken, you can't control what the weather's going to be like, but you can use tools like Photoshop to touch it up to make it just look nicer, like a blue sky, things like that, brighten up the photographs. So that's the difference between regular photography and professional photography. Then floor plans and maybe even a 3D walkthrough. There's some great tools available right now that the agents can deploy, where pretty much you can just on the platforms like Rightmove and Zoopla, you can walk through the property and have a good look. So these are tools that will really help position and sell the property. But the important thing is the property has to look fantastic, because when the people start coming in to view that property, firstly, we'll set a date in terms of when the viewings will start. So what we want is, let's say it's 4 weeks time, the property is going to be ready and it's going to be finished. We want to make sure it's a realistic timeline. We want to make sure everything's finished. The property is immaculate. There isn't a single tool or tradesperson on site and there's no leftover rubbish. The property is looking stunning. The photography is being done. Sometimes it can feel a bit frustrating, we're waiting for these things to happen, but believe me, you get one chance at making a first impression. So it's important that it looks stunning. So when the agent lines up those viewings, they have a number of viewings lined up. Now, they might want to do a block viewing. It might be that they're doing several viewings on a day, just one after the other. Whichever way they're doing it, they've lined up the interest and the property is looking amazing when it's come to the market. Now, how well the agent performs really is going to depend on who you've actually chosen. So when it comes to choosing an agent, what I generally look for is their experience. How active are they in the market? How many of these type of properties have they sold in the last few months in this area? How well do they know the area? As opposed to the one who really pitches me the highest price. Yeah, we think it's going to be worth this much. We can get you that much. Sign up into this contract and we'll get this done for you. What I'm focused on is who gives me the feeling that they understand the market, they know the market, they know who potentially is going to be right for this property, and they'll get out there and they'll be an advocate and a fan for that property getting sold. And often I joke with the agents, look, I've made your job very easy. I've got an amazing property here. All you need to do is just bring people around to show it. Now, I'm being a little bit dismissive of their skills, but this is really what we're looking for. Somebody who understands the market, not necessarily the one who gives me the highest price, because I can determine and set the price. If I get a sense that this is where I think the market should be, then I can determine that price and say, this is what I want us to list at. So when the agent is bringing people around, really an active agent will get that deal done very quickly. Most of the properties that I've flipped and I've put onto the market, particularly in more recent years as I've become more and more experienced with this, generally within days they're sold. And that's not because, you know, it's a brilliant agent, it's a brilliant house. Everything, all the things I'm sharing with you have been done and lined up in order. So when the property comes to the market, that buzz, that excitement is there. It's got a great agent on it. People have kind of queued up to try and see the property. And often I'll try and list it. If it's a very buoyant market, I'll try it at the top end. But if the market's a little bit slower, I'll reduce the price slightly in terms of what I'm listing it at the first price, so it looks more attractive compared to everything else in the market. And as I said earlier, the property needs to look amazing, because when people walk through, you want to get them drawn into wows and, oh, this is amazing, and I can see how, you know, we'd be sitting out there in the garden in the summer, you know, all these things. You want them to think about how they could enjoy this property, as opposed to them walking around thinking, oh, that doesn't quite look right, maybe we're gonna have to get that done, that's another £5,000 there, that doesn't look too great, I don't like that, that red is a bit garish, maybe we need to change that. You don't want things to get, you don't want people to be put off by things like that. This is why your neutral colors really help in terms of the finish, rather than making your personal mark by putting a stamp on it of what you think it should be. Think about mass market appeal. Hopefully the agent will get a deal done for you fairly quickly and a price agreed, but that's not the time to start celebrating, because you still got to reach a completion point, and this could take weeks or sometimes months. And this is where it's important, again, make sure you've got somebody great on your team like the solicitor, because they're going to be doing the next bit, pushing that deal along. And also, if you've got a great agent, they'll be making sure that the buyer's doing all the things they need to do to keep everything moving that sale along. Once you've reached completion day and the money's in the bank, that's the time to celebrate. However, it is important that you've done your calculations correctly in terms of how much you've truly spent on that property, so you know what your true profit is, and make sure you bear in mind things like your purchase costs as well, the stamp duty you paid originally when you purchased, your solicitor's fees that you paid, not only all the renovation, the cleaning, the skips that you had to pay for, maybe additional professional photography you had to pay for, but then you've got holding costs as well, such as, for example, council tax, maybe mortgage or finance payments that you had during the time you held the property. Then at the point of sale, you'd have had estate agent costs again, solicitors costs again as well. So we want a true picture of exactly how much profit we make. And the first deal you do, you may not make a huge amount of money, but you'll probably get a huge amount of experience, and you'll probably get the bug for wanting to do this again and again, because it can be really addictive, because you'll make a chunk of cash, and often when you look at it, how much effort you put into it versus the profit you've given you. And as I said earlier when I started this video, often one deal could be more profit than a typical UK salary. So many people, when they're doing these type of projects and they get started, even if they're doing 2 or maybe 3 a year, That's a significant level of profit that you can achieve by using this one strategy that pretty much works in any market. Hey, if you enjoyed this content, then it really help me out if you hit that subscribe button and subscribe to the channel, but also click on the notification bell, and that way you get notified when these deals are done. And then once you've done that, what to do next is click on this video over here, which is one of our projects where we took a small 2-bedroom terrace property and turned it into a beautiful 4-bedroom house, making in excess of 100,000 profit. I look forward to seeing you next on this video over here.